freeze mode, and nobody really knew what to do with themselves. We were all stuck at home. We didn't know how to Zoom yet, really. We didn't know how to work from home that well. And so people just kind of went crazy. We started baking bread all the time and watching Netflix all day long and drinking more. Well, hopefully by now, this is month 6, hopefully by now you have readopted some semblance of schedule, some semblance of normalcy. But if you're like me, you may be working from the computer all of the time now. And if that's the case, I want to recommend to you that you actually take physical breaks every 2 hours for 10 minutes from the computer and from any blue screen. And by physical breaks, I mean step away from the computer. Go to a different room even in your house. And in particular, engage a different part of your brain. So if you're staring at the computer, talking on the computer, or typing all the time, do some light exercises, stretches, walk for 10 minutes, read from a novel, listen to some music, anything that engages a different part of your brain. Science actually tells us that people who take regularly scheduled 10-minute breaks throughout their day, about every 2 hours, they actually are more productive workers and actually get more done in their day. They're more successful towards the end of their day than people who just power through. I'm not sure what that is, but I believe it is the fact that you are engaging more parts of your brain by taking breaks. So absolutely take some breaks through your day, and my rule is about every 2 hours. Okay, I want to shift now and talk a little bit about the neurochemistry of mood. So again, most people who come to see me usually have either anxiety, depression, or stress of some sort. So I'm always focused on how to help them improve their mood. And well, one of the best things you can do is think about the 3 neurotransmitters and chemicals in your body that are responsible for mood, and they are serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine. And there are some things you can do to improve the production and the release of these particular chemicals. So serotonin, big one involved with depression. Most of our antidepressants are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. What that means is it allows serotonin to be in the presynaptic gaps of your brain for longer periods of time, and that creates better feelings of well-being. And the best way to get serotonin's production and stimulation in the brain is with exercise. So when we talked about those 10-minute breaks, if you can do a brisk walk or some stretches or some light calisthenics, anything for about 10 minutes will actually help improve serotonin boosts in your brain. So imagine doing that throughout your day. And then if you can get 30 to 40 minutes in at some interval, even better. So serotonin is frequently being produced in your brain. Oxytocin. Now, I like to call oxytocin the hug drug because it's best released when we're intimate. And I do mean intimate. So, but if you can't get intimate all the time, which we can't, what you can do is hug. Hugs actually release oxytocin. And so the more you can hug someone, or even your pets or a pillow, anything like that will help to release oxytocin in the brain and in the body. And some people feel that an oxytocin, a real big burst of oxytocin, will actually last for hours or even days. So the more hugs you can get, the better. The more intimate you can be, the more frequency you can have intimacy, kissing, hugging, etc. The better you're going to feel. So oxytocin's a great one. Now, dopamine. Dopamine is one of our primary neurotransmitters responsible for our happiness. And one of the best ways, there's 2 real key ways to get dopamine production stimulated in the brain. The first one is with gratitude. So everybody take a minute here and reflect on somebody that you're grateful for and why. Okay, good. Now, when we reflect on gratitude, your brain begins to stimulate dopamine production. But even tenfold, when we tell someone why we're grateful for them, it's exponentially exploding in our brain. So after today's meeting, I want you to call someone up or tell someone in person why you are grateful for them, and see if you can feel how that makes you feel. I kind of liken it to the service feeling. Like when we're doing something nice for someone else, when we're serving, you know how it makes us feel as Rotarians. It's a wonderful feeling. That's dopamine. That's dopamine stimulation and production in your brain. Now, when we give it away to someone else, even more are you getting dopamine production, and you're encouraging dopamine production in that other person because they experience that compliment from you, and then they get dopamine. And so it's kind of an infectious disease, so to speak. It's a lot like smiling. So the other way to increase dopamine response is with smiling. So I want everyone to lean in towards their cameras for a minute. Come on, real close. And for the next 5 minutes, let's all smile. 1, 2, 3, go. 5 seconds. Nice smiles. All right, so smiling truthfully is a dopamine producer. An interesting thing about smiling, your brain has no idea if a smile is faked, forced, or real. It just feels the muscles go up and it says, oh, she's smiling, let's start producing dopamine, and your brain does. So the more you can smile, even a fake smile. With my depressed patients, we actually do smiling exercises in my office. And when they go home, I encourage them to spend at least 60 seconds here and there smiling at themselves in mirrors. It is unbelievable. And it too is infectious, kind of like the yawn. What happens when you see someone yawn? It makes you want to yawn. Smiling is the same way. When you see people are smiling at you, it makes you want to smile back. And again, your brain doesn't know why it's doing it, but it feels it and it begins to stimulate dopamine production. So definitely smile as often as you can. And when you take off that pesky mask, smile at someone and watch them smile back at you. And again, you're infecting them with dopamine. So it's wonderful. It's not only great for yourself, but you can make other people happy just by smiling and with gratitude. Now, there are some enemies to these chemicals, to our feel-good feelings. One of the biggest enemies is anxiety. And anxiety is actually a brain response. And here's how that works in your brain. So you have in the left hemisphere and right hemisphere, in the back of your brain, you have these two little almond-shaped things called the amygdala. And the amygdala, when you start to worry, it lights up and it sends a message to the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is responsible for your fight, flight, or freeze response. And that turns on your adrenal glands and all that autonomic nervous system response that you get when you feel anxious. Sweating, butterflies in your stomach, you lose your words, things like that. That's an autonomic nervous response from that amygdala hypothalamus relay system. And there are a couple things you can do to turn that off. So the first is with deep breathing exercises. You'll hear people say, you know, when they're anxious or having a panic attack or something, deep breathing, you know, breathe deep, take a deep breath. There's actually truth to that. That you have to do the deep breathing exercises properly in order to have it a full effect, especially if you're having a sort of panic attack, that sort of thing. So the way to do a proper deep breath is first you inhale through your nose, not your mouth. You have to inhale through your nose. And then you hold your breath, and then you exhale through your mouth. And the inhale and the exhale should be incredibly slow. So I'm going to demonstrate for you what I mean by slow, and you can even time me to see how long it takes. Now, remember, I do this every day with patients, so I'm pretty good at it. And as you practice, though, you'll get better and better. All right, so here's how a proper deep breath looks. Inhaling. Holding. Exhale. And then I check in with myself. There it is. I can feel when it happens to my body. I kind of get this sensation that goes sort of like, it's just this really It's a physical feeling that I get, comes a few seconds after the breath, and I literally feel my body go, ah, and somewhere happens between here and here for me. I would encourage you all to try this at home. Do it after the meeting, do it seated, and do 3 breaths in a row if you can. You can get a little lightheaded, that's why I say to do it seated. But usually 2 to 3 repetitions will cause all of that system to go off. Even if you're not anxious, just practice it just to see how it feels. Check in after each breath, see if you've noticed any difference. Do it again and see if you notice any difference. But you should be able to eventually catch the feeling in your body that is a calming sensation. Now, another thing you can do to turn off your anxiety centers is with a technique called bilateral sound therapy. And this is a technique I'm using with almost all of my patients, whether they're anxious, irritable, angry, stressed out, depressed, or having problems with sleep, or even concentration issues. And here's how it works. You will use earbuds or a headset, and you're going to listen to a very specific engineered type of music or nature sounds. And I'm going to give you a download here for it in a second. And as you listen, you close your eyes, and you'll notice that you hear the sounds in one ear and then the next, and then back to this ear and then the next. And as that happens, you'll notice that your eyes behind your closed eyelids begin to track the sound. You can even almost feel the sort of shape of the sound sometimes. And as your eyes and your ears are moving, a very particular brain wave starts to occur that actually travels over the top of the 2 hemispheres, crossing the midline section. And actually, that particular brain wave turns off the amygdalas. It's incredibly powerful. Takes about 2 to 6 minutes, and boom, you can be out of a panic attack or focused or calm. Really helps with sleep as well. And the best resource that I believe, this is my favorite resource, his name is David Grand. He's one of the founding fathers of this technique. He's actually coined the term biolateral, but you can just call it bilateral. You can Google this. You can find this for free on YouTube. You can also download this album on iTunes, Spotify, that sort of thing, or purchase a CD on Amazon or at his website. But I just think David's product is one of the best, and this is the product that I use with my patients. Again, he's got a really nice mix of nature sounds and music throughout the album. This one has about 15 songs on it. So there's quite the variety, so you can figure out which type of sound works best for you. So David Grand, Biolateral Sound Brain Spotting is the name of this particular album. And again, it's one of the most powerful therapeutic techniques that I'm using with my patients. The great thing about it is you don't have to be in someone's office to use it. You can use it anywhere, anytime, basically. I have one patient who has vertigo, so she can't really close her eyes and do it because it makes her dizzy. So she just listens to it with her eyes open and still has a pretty powerful effect. So whatever works best for you. All right, so I want to shift a little bit and talk about change and what might be your barriers to change. You know, when the pandemic started, very early on, I felt it was very important for myself, my friends, my family, my patients to set some personal goals for themselves so that when we came out of this pandemic, we would be better people, better neighbors, better Rotarians, better, maybe physically fit, healthier in some way, having met some goals, having initiated some improvements in our lives. Because really, you know, this was a chance to either use this time for the better or fail to use it at all. When we had no idea how long this was going to last, still don't. So there's still plenty of time to consider, what do I want to do with this time? How do I want to come out of this better? But I'll tell you what, that's usually the thing that's happening in my office. People come to see me because they want to be different in some way, shape, or form. Relationships, personal, you know, mood, whatever it is, something needs to change in their life. So why do people fail at changing? Number one reason, effort. Unbelievable, but it's effort. It's unbelievable how little effort we will all put into things, and how easily we give up, or how we will talk ourselves out of what it is we wanted to do differently. So if you've ever found yourself kind of flailing at reaching a goal, I want to give you some tips on how you can reach your goals, how you can change a behavior, how you can initiate behavior that can make you more successful. But first and foremost, you have to be aware of your effort. What are you really willing to do? To what lengths are you willing to go to effectuate that change? And effort has to be sustained. So the first thing I like to tell my patients is to choose one habit at a time, or one goal at a time. Start small. Otherwise, you may be setting yourself up for failure if you take on too much or multiple tasks at a time. I've also heard there's a book out there, 21 Days to Successful Change, or 21 Days to Change a Habit. I can't find any science or research that says that 21 days is magic in some ways. Quite frankly, everything I have seen and done tells me that it takes much longer to really effectuate real change, permanent change in our lives. So I like to think of goals in 30, 60, 90, and 6-month kind of sets, so to speak, like short-term goals, long-term goals. It's also important to break your goals up into smaller goals. So I'll use myself for a lot of reference here. I've had these pretty big fitness goals for myself. Now I know my fitness goals will probably take me 6 months to a year to reach. That's a long way off, and I might get disgruntled even, if I'm not seeing the progress, right away. So I set lots of small goals along the way. So for instance, I wanted to be able to do 20 push-ups. I achieved that. So then I decided I wanted to be able to do decline push-ups. So, I put my feet up on a bench and I do decline push-ups. I accomplished that. My goal right now is to be able to do a pull-up. And I am 53 years of age, and I am halfway there. So my goal is to reach that by December 31st. So I am out on my pull-up bar in my garage every day trying to do pull-ups. And if I don't set these small goals along the way, that 6 months to a year goal just continues to ache. It's so far out there that it doesn't seem achievable. So break your long-term goal up into lots and lots of little things you can achieve on the way, so that you get rewarded intrinsically, internally, for having achieved things. Now, a goal is great if you think about it, but it's even better, science tells us, if it's written down. A written goal is a stronger goal and will make you more accountable. So really take some time to write about your goal. Write about why you want to achieve it. What are your motivations? Every single day I write down my goals on a Post-it note or a 3x5 sticky card. And I put these on paper because it's more cathartic to write them down, as I said, but I also put them where I can see them. So I stick them to my computer as a constant reminder throughout my day what it is I'm trying to achieve. I always put a hydration goal. Today it's 75 ounces, because when you're under stress, you will dehydrate faster. And when you're dehydrated, you eat more. And so if I'm trying to achieve fitness goals, I want to be as healthy as possible with my nutrition. I put down what my nutrition goals are. Today I want to juice and eat oats. So oats and juice are on there. I have a fitness goal to work out today with a trainer. My Rotary goal and my personal goal are always on my day-to-day goal lists. So written every single day, reminding yourself it's not good enough just to think about it. Every day I do this, and every day I'm fairly successful because I've written it down and it makes me accountable. That's on my computer with that. All right. So the other thing you should write about when you're starting to think about your goals is what your triggers are to failure and what your obstacles to failure are. Triggers and obstacles are similar, but they're slightly different. So An obstacle might be, if it's a fitness goal, that my gym is so far away that it takes me a long time to get there. That'd be a pretty big obstacle to working out. So my gym is in my basement because I know if it's right there, I'll go and do it. But if I have to drive to Richland, which is a 20-minute drive, I'm not going to go. I'll find other reasons to say, oh, I don't have that 20 minutes to get there, 20 minutes to get back, and an hour in between. That's a long time. But I can do 45 minutes to an hour in my basement without that travel time. There's an obstacle removed. So consider how you failed in the past and figure out where your obstacles were and remove them. Find ways around them. Now, a trigger is different. A trigger for me might be, let's say I'm going to a Rotary conference, and the biggest trigger is you sit down at a meal, and what is in front of you if it's a preset meal? Dessert. Sitting there on the table from the time I arrive until the time I have to leave, and that darn piece of cheesecake is just staring at me, and it's taunting me, and it's tempting me. So what do? I take 2 bites, and then I douse it with pepper and salt. It's a crazy trick, but it works. I can't eat that cheesecake if it's covered in pepper and salt, but I do want a bite or two. I still want to, I don't want to deprive myself. So I'll take my couple bites of cheesecake and then I kill it. I literally kill it. People think I'm crazy. I'm like, could you pass the salt? And they see what I'm doing. They're like, God, don't sit at her table again. Weird, but it's my way of getting past that trigger so that it doesn't sabotage me. Now, that's a key word, sabotagers. Do you have sabotagers in your life? People who are like, come on, you want to have a glass of wine with me? And you're thinking, oh, I wasn't going to drink tonight. I'm on my juicing day. My biggest sabotager is my best friend. Her name is Sharon, and she always asks me to go out on Wednesday nights because it's like half-price wine night at our favorite restaurant. And when I went on this fitness kick, I said to her, okay, Sharon, for the next 2 months, I'm really, really off of booze completely. So please don't ask me to go out because I can't say no to her. And she agreed. She said, I hear you. I know what you're trying to accomplish. So I won't ask you out for the next 60 days. So if you have sabotagers in your life, it's really a great idea if you actually talk to them and get them to get on board with your plan. You'll be surprised at how supportive they actually are if they're your true friends. Okay, now you too can also be your own sabotager, unfortunately. My phrase is this: we are what we think. We are what we think. And if you're filling your head with a lot of negative talk, you're going to feel negative, and that can even cause depression. So when you hear yourself derailing yourself with a lot of negative talk, recommit to your goals. Go back to what you wrote down. Reread that initial couple of paragraphs about what your motivations are. Tell yourself this too shall pass. Give yourself 12 hours before you do anything to derail yourself physically from your goal. Say, you know what, I'll sleep on it. If I still feel this way in the morning, I'll figure something out. Usually a good night's sleep and letting 12 hours pass will help you to get out of your negative thoughts. But it's also important to really catch your negative thoughts and say, stop, that's not my truth. It's just the way I'm feeling right now. And replace it with a positive thought. Look how far I've come already. Look at the fact that you can do 20 push-ups now. Look, you've already lost 15 pounds. You can do this. So what if you're plateaued? Big deal, you're gaining muscle. Whatever it is you have to do to self-talk yourself into that workout, or into not eating that cake, or into putting the cigarette down, or whatever it is you're trying to do to change. Self-talk can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. So squash your negative thoughts like a bug and replace them with positive truths, even if they're small truths, reminding yourself and recommit. Along the way, again, it's very important that you give yourself rewards. I reached a goal, I think it was about 4 weeks ago. And if any of you follow, I think some of you follow me on Facebook. I see a few familiar faces and names out there. I had this giant maple bacon donut that I had been just dying for from this wonderful shop that's about a half an hour away. And I knew when I reached a certain goal weight that I was going to eat that donut, and I did. And it was delicious. And so I set up rewards for myself along the way, so that I can look forward to things. Rewards are important. Kudos are important. It's also important to have a social connection with the people who will support you. And that is why I post things on Facebook. I'm part of a huge, I would say, group of friends who are fitness focused, and we encourage each other, to keep pushing and to try to do this, and just positive thinking. We give each other kudos along the way. And having that support system is so important, because you never know who you're going to inspire or who will inspire you. So public recognition is great for rewards, and you never know who you might be helping along the way. So share your stories and give yourself rewards. Okay, mantras. I'm a big believer in mantras, again, because we are what we think. So I have some mantras for not for quitting smoking. I have a friend who's trying to quit smoking, and her mantra is not one puff, not one puff. And she will do that, not one puff. And she refuses to even allow herself to have one puff off a cigarette. And anytime she's craving, she reminds herself that this craving will pass within 15 minutes, which most cravings do, pass within 15 minutes. She has a whole thing set up of what she's going to do when she gets a craving. She brushes her teeth or rinses her mouth out with mouthwash, and then she takes a brisk walk. And within 15 minutes, she says, it's gone. That craving is gone. So if she can get through that 15 minutes with her mantras and her behavioral tactics, she's golden, and she's doing great. For me, I started running about a year ago, and I hated the first mile. So, but then I found that after the first mile, I kind of found my groove. So my mantra was, the first mile is a lie. The first mile is a lie. It's lying to me. And then I felt okay the next couple of miles. So the hardest part is starting is a great mantra. Here's one that I use. No one ever regrets a workout. I mean, you never regret a workout. So I like this one. A friend of mine uses this. He says, gas station ready. And he means that he wants his body to be strong enough and muscular enough to be gas station ready. So if he gets mugged at a gas station, he's going to win that fight. It's a weird mantra, but he loves it. I'm gas station ready. So whatever your mantra is, use that as a way to propel yourself out of your negative thoughts and to stay the focus and to get through your triggers or obstacles. Again, I want to just go right back to my last tip of the day, and it's sort of an overview. It's renew your commitment. Keep your daily logs, log everything down, write things down. The more you can write about your plan, your failures, your successes, the more you can write about adjustments, keeping exercise logs, things like that. That is absolutely so important to effectuating success and changing yourself. Even when you hit hiccups or potholes and you find minor failures, readjust. Say, okay, no big deal. So yesterday wasn't a great day. I had a big old juicy hamburger and I didn't work out. It's like, okay, so what? Today I'm going to double my water intake and do 20 extra minutes of aerobics. Big deal. Readjust. Change your plan ever so slightly. Don't kick yourself. Don't be your worst enemy. Don't punish yourself. Just move on. Today is a new day. One of the things that you need to recognize about anxiety, depression, and negative self-talk is that those things require rumination. Anxiety does best when we are off in the future, when we're doing what if thinking. What if I get COVID-19? What if I don't lose this weight? What if I lose my job? What if, what if, what if? Anxiety loves the future because it gives it time to fester and ruminate. Anxiety also does really good in the past. That's your would've, could've, should've thinking. Oh, I should have worked out yesterday. If I could have only, said no to that donut. Forget about that. That's going to cause your amygdalas to fire up. So stay out of the past, stay out of the future, be present, mindful, make adjustments, and be as present as you can in your life. And if that doesn't work, plug into your bilateral sound, readjust, center yourself, and move forward through the day. You know, at the end of this pandemic, at the end of the election, all of 2020, et cetera, eventually this is all going to be over. And we're going to come back to some semblance of normalcy or whatever our new normal will be. And again, ask yourself, how do you want to be better at the end of this? What will you value differently? For me, I will have valued and appreciated the physical touch different from now on in my life. I miss my Rotary hugs more than anything. And I really didn't realize before how much I valued hugging other people. So that's shifted for me, and that's sort of my renaissance of my human spirit, in that sense of, every time I get a hug now, I just cherish it. It feels different to me. So yeah, how I value things is going to be different, and how I come out of this is going to be different, because life is not on pause. It's just different right now. And I plan on being better for this. So that part is up to me. There's not a whole lot else I can control in life, but that I can control. So those are kind of my 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 hot tips of the day. And I would love to open it up to questions, however you see fit to do that.
Well, I think for those folks that aren't used to Zoom, there's a chat box. And so I think probably because we have well over 100 folks on the call, probably the most efficient thing, if you have a question or a comment that you'd like us to pose to Dr. Berge, to just go ahead and post it in the chat. And if you do want to have a dialogue as part of your question, indicate that in the chat, and I will unmute you, or you can unmute yourself, and we can have a dialogue. But while you're going ahead and using the chat box to initiate questions and comments, I actually have a question, so I'll kind of kick us off here for Dr. Berge. Most of us are spending way too much time on Zoom, and of course, Zoom is a wonderful technology because at least we get to see each other. But I've been amazed, both on business and Rotary calls, how people assume that they can't be seen on this, and you are often talking to a bunch of stone faces or people who are distracted, not even seeming to be engaged in the meeting. I like your suggestion about taking 5 seconds and having everyone smile at the camera. I think that can maybe connect people. But I was wondering if you had some other practical tips or exercises to engage people in using this technology.
I've never gotten that question before, Mark. Thanks. Wow. It's funny because there was a time when we were sort of overwhelmed with Zoom. I was actually telling people to feel free, if it's like a meeting where you don't have to actually talk, where you just have to listen, like there's a lot of trainings and things we might be going to, that it's okay to also take yourself off of camera sometimes. And you can even be like, if you're in a chair all day long, it's okay to get on the floor and stretch and do some yoga while you're listening. You don't have to just sit here and stare at the camera. But yeah, so some Zoom tips. Number one, look at how you look on the film. You look at yourself and decide are you up like this? Are you down like this? I have one patient who talks to me like this all the time, but she's 90, God bless her. I don't tell her to move her camera, I don't care. But camera height, so you're seeing yourself at the same place. We don't, so that you're not top of your head or something. And just know that this is there is a sense of like reality here. This is how we're connecting. So move in if you want to, be still if you need to be. A lot of movements kind of, I tend to move a lot, but when you're a listener, just think of what would you be doing if you were actually in a seminar. That's the way I remind myself to be still and to be mindful of the meeting. What would I do if I were in person? Would I be eating? Would I be drinking? Would I be doing these things or not? And if not, then I try not to do them on Zoom. It's just sort of my, simple rule. Other than that, I don't know. I'll have to think on that, Mark.
Yeah, no, that was very helpful. And I try to, me personally, what I've decided to do is try to react to the speaker as if we were standing there in a room together, you know. As so often I'm the speaker, and so I really appreciate when I'm getting some kind of visual feedback, body language that I can at least read and understand if I'm being understood or if I need to change my presentation in some way.
Some coffee, sorry, Mark.
But
And
hey,
yeah, and you know, another thing you can do if you there's been on a couple meetings where I was in Kenya or Uganda, and because their internet is so unstable, they would only have their names up, no faces. That's really weird when you're talking to 55 people and it's just names. So what I do in that instance is I pin myself. So if you look at the little 3 dots in your upper right hand corner and you click on that, you can say pin. And if you pin yourself, you become the whole screen. So when I have a meeting that's just all names or mostly names, I pin myself and I talk to myself so that I at least see my own reflection. And that actually helps me to feel connected, even though it's just me I'm seeing. I don't know why, but I need to see a face. And so I just make myself really large. So if that helps, if you ever do have to talk to a screen full of just names, that does help me feel more engaged for some reason.
great. No, very helpful, and I agree. Well, hey, let me share a couple other questions that have come across the chat box. So one of our participants said that she herself is retired and an introvert, and she's done well through this, but her husband's job has been much more stressful, and she's looking for ways that she can help and support him.
Okay, so definitely share with him the bilateral sound. Again, that is a great resource for anything and everything. But I would actually have the conversation with him and ask him, what does he need? How can he help? And he may say, I don't know, nothing, it's just my life. Then tell him about these techniques, and especially the bilateral sound, and see if the two of you can't spend some time listening to it, like schedule that in. Ask him to try it during his 10-minute breaks at work and see if that helps him, because I find it at work to be incredibly de-stressing. Whenever I have to do a lot of paperwork in my job, usually credentialing applications and things like that, insurance forms, that drives me batty. So I will plug in during that time to keep my stress level down, because otherwise I get very irritable. And when I'm using the bilateral sound at work for my paperwork aspect, I don't have any irritability. It's bizarre, but it really keeps me out of that place. So I would say the best thing you could do is give him the bilateral sound.
Great. And some other questions too. That was very helpful. Thank you, Dr. Berge. And so one of our other participants is looking for advice, talking about the feeling of isolation that occurs with all of us working from home, and feeling like that sense of collaboration that we get when we work in a workplace with others feels lost with all this remote work. And how can we at least foster more collaboration and more feelings of togetherness in this very isolated time?
Okay, so one of the things that I think you can do during this time is to, first of all, I think it's a great time for us to try to improve our work, whatever it is we do. So for me, I've been taking a lot of online courses with other colleagues, sharing that with my colleagues. Like I have one particular colleague, his name is Reese at work. And Reese, he and I have been choosing our CEUs together and taking them online together, but then talking about them. Or we'll read the same book and talk about it. So anything you can do that brings you back together on a shared experience is great. So that works for me. I'm just trying to think outside the box here, what other kind of jobs there might be. It's tough. But even social time, like we're doing with Rotary, to having a social hour or something with colleagues. I've done that with my workers. I have 20 people who work with me, and we once a month are doing a social time where we all at 6 o'clock at night on a Friday night have a glass of wine together on Zoom, and just try to talk about what's been happening in our collective offices at home, and just share experiences. So even if you can create a little social hour every few weeks, that's a great way to connect again.
Great. Yep. And
when you said that, Mary, it made me think about
last night we watched my teacher, the octopus, or whatever that new documentary is. And I just think, oh, I'm looking forward to seeing my friend tonight, and we can talk about that movie, you know. So even watching some uplifting shows on TV. Yeah.
Yeah, my whole office right now seems to be watching the Netflix series Schitt's Creek.
Oh.
Everybody's on it, so that's always, you know, whenever we are, you know, saying, did you watch episode such and such, you know, when David says, well, so yes, even a silly show or a fun movie, put that out there to your colleagues and say, let's all watch this in the next 5 days, and then let's have a social hour and talk about it. So yeah, good advice, Valerie.
Yep, and personally, I'll add in my practice, what I found is that I'm actually staying more connected and having more collaboration with clients now, because it's so much easier to say, hey, I'm going to Zoom with you, and can we Zoom in 15 minutes? And it's a lot easier to do that than to drive for 2 hours to be with them in a room. So I find that there's actually more connection than I previously had. So it's been a blessing, actually. So a couple other
fantastic program. I really appreciate your sharing the insights with us. I'm amazed at how much science and common sense are coming together. You know, we now have words like serotonin and oxytocin and dopamine. My mother's from West Virginia, and they have what they call mountain humor. And I go through these and never hesitate to give someone a hug. That's mountain humor. Don't hang around with people that bring you down. That's mountain humor. Give a compliment anytime you can. I mean, all this time before science gave synapse a reason for it, a lot of common sense says to do the things that you've been extolling. So thank you very much.
So welcome, David. Thank you for that comment.
And David, that's probably a great segue to one of the other questions in the chat box, which is what about addiction to stimulation from neurotransmitters? Okay,
it's a very real thing. It's called dopamine chasing, and it can be addicting. So this is where like people become addicts. So gambling addiction, sex addiction, internet addiction. These are, when you have an addiction, a lot of times there's a rush of dopamine and you get that release and it feels really good. And then over the course of the next few days, you deplete. So when you're doing a very extreme behavior, and it's very rewarding in a addictive way, again, drugs, alcohol, sex, internet, gambling, these sorts of things, you get a big rush of dopamine and then it falls. So it's important for us to be stimulating our dopamine on a more even keel versus the extreme behavior, because otherwise you can get into a dopamine chasing cycle. And that's one of the things that I work with people who have addictions, is how to sort of regulate their dopamine production and how to not chase that big thing. One of the things that you have to do if you are dopamine addicted is withdraw, is absolutely refrain from the behavior that's causing that big rush of dopamine. It will be depressing at first. So we usually supplement with something. We supplement another behavior in there for the behavior that we're replacing. So someone who might be like sex addicted, we'll have them start doing exercise at a regular every time that they feel like they need to go out there and chase that thing. I'll have them do a burst of exercise in that moment to get that craving to pass and to get through the initial phases of depression that come with the grief and the loss, the real loss of the dopamine highs. So we don't want these giant spikes. We want even keel throughout your day. And again, this is why just smiling and doing exercise and taking good care of yourself makes a difference.
Dr. Berge, we had one of our parents on the call talking about how, you know, now our kids are stuck in front of a camera for 8 hours a day going to school and then doing homework, sitting at the computer beyond that, and looking for advice to keep our kids healthy and to deal with this new reality in their school life.
Yeah, you know, I'm finding too that kids are pretty resilient, surprisingly so in this this new way of living. At least with the families I'm working with, most parents are saying that the parents are stressed out about it, but the kids are doing fairly well. Now, this doesn't mean all kids are going to be resilient and bounce back, or all kids are going to not have any problems. But for the most part, children can be pretty resilient and pretty adaptive. But one of my best pieces of advice is, if you find that your child is anxious or not doing well, talk to them about what's going on and how to connect, maybe even connect them with some neighbors in your things that you can do service-wise. I have a couple neighbors who about once a week are baking cookies and leaving little packages of cookies on people's doorsteps with a little note, writing to people who are shut in, little cards and drawing pictures, whatever they can do to give to others and get out of themselves can typically help kids to feel like they have a better sense of control. Always check your own feelings when you're about to talk to kids to make sure that you're not anxious, because they will pick up on that. So whatever you are displaying emotionally, your children will display emotionally. So if you're calm, happy, cool, and collected, and resilient, your kids will also probably be more resilient. So model what you want from them.
Hi, Mary. I'm Kathy Buffalo, and I'm just want to say thank you too for sharing with us. But one of the things you mentioned is starting your day over. Like for me, or basically, like I'll do better, when you start being hard on yourself. And one of the best things I've learned lately is like I can start my day over at any time. And that's the best of it. I don't have to wait for tomorrow to start it over. I can start it over today. So so we can keep moving forward and trying to be positive in the midst of some crazy things going on. So thanks.
Yeah, that's great advice, Kathy. There's in the 12-step programs, I used to work in drug and alcohol treatment centers, and it was always one day at a time. Some people needed 1 hour at a time or 5 minutes at a time. And so you're absolutely right. So you can start over right now. And that's a great piece of advice. Don't wait for tomorrow. Start now.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for Dr. Berge? We're coming up on our hour here, and wanted to, knowing that we're in the midst of a weekend, wanted to stay true to that hour commitment. But if there are any other quick questions or comments, we can take them, and then we'll adjourn it very shortly here. Well, very good. I'm not seeing anything. Dr. Berge, is it all right if folks reach out to you via email, Facebook, and stay in touch going forward, if that's
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely. Find me on Facebook, and I'll put my email address in the chat box. If you do find yourself needing a therapist, the best thing to do is to go to psychologytoday.com and look at find a therapist and punch in your zip code, and all the therapists that advertise there will pop on there. I'm on there. I get lots of referrals through psychologytoday.com, tons of referrals that way. So it'll populate all the therapists in your area, and all of us are doing telemedicine, so we're super available. So absolutely, if you feel like, okay, I'm doing the bilateral and I'm deep breathing and I'm exercising and I'm doing all these things, but I still need to talk to someone, great. We're here, and that's the best way to find someone right in your area.
No, that's great advice, Dr. Berge. And one of our participants asked if you had your own website or a blog that you maintain anywhere that they could take a look at.
drberg.com is my website, drberg.com, and I have some YouTubes out there. You can probably just put my name into YouTube and find some things. I do this one on YouTube, a short version of this. I do all kinds of weird stuff on YouTube, so if you find me cooking spinach soup or something, that wouldn't be abnormal either.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so very much for being with us this morning and taking your time to do this for us. We really appreciate it.
All right, I'll put my website out here too, just so y'all have it, drberg.com. Oops, C-O-M. All right, guys, bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Make sure you join us tomorrow at 7 p.m. for Evan Burrell from the Superhero from Australia. Hopefully I'll have stable internet. Today's gone a crazy day. My husband just told me all our wash machine hoses just broke. So Mary, I'm going to be using all the things you taught me.
Kathy, please send me an invite to that. I'd love to see Evan.
Sure, I will do that.
All right, great.
Monday,
Bye.
Monday evening.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. See you Monday.
Deep breathe, Kathy.
Great session. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.